Hello, everyone. I want to do a Twitchcast over committees in Congress, and I want you to be aware that I'm going to cover quite a bit of information, so don't just be fooled by the title. So let's start by looking at the concept of committees in general. Now, the first thing I want you to understand is that every member of Congress, regardless of their seniority, regardless of what's going on, every member of Congress serves on more than one committee. Some of them serve on more committees than others. It depends on their loyalty to the party leadership, remember that, their length of service, etc. Now, the one thing that I do want you to remember to keep in mind always is that these people are assigned to their committee by the leadership. See that word leadership right there? That is going to be very important as we go through this. And if you will remember, I have been stressing the concept of leadership, loyalty to the leadership, and the fact that the leadership comes out of the majority. Now, it is important to a member of Congress that they be placed in the correct committee by subject matter. All committees, the standing committees, are by subject matter. And it's in committees where the work of Congress is really done. This is where, in a smaller group, that members of Congress are able to make a name for themselves. You see, in order to get anything done, in order to be perceived as being an effective member of Congress, a person from Houston, and let's say from, whether you're from the Richmond area, whether you're from Cypress, whether you're from the inner city of Houston, you've got to be on a committee that has to do with Houston, okay? Doesn't do you any good to be on a committee that has to do with wildlife and salmon fishing in Montana. That doesn't help Houston at all. And so here are some committees that you might want to be on if you were a representative or a senator from Texas. Highways, God knows we need highways. Education, the medical, oil and gas, and of course, immigration. Now, I want you to look at what is in red here. It is in committees that members can prove that they are fighting to get things for their district. Notice what I have right here. It says, pay attention to the term incumbency, okay? You will have run across that term. In other words, you need to re-elect me because look what I've done. Now, in order for this to happen, look right here. There's that magic word again, loyalty. They got to be loyal. They've got to be loyal to the speaker if they're in the House. And they've got to be loyal to the majority leader of the Senate. You see, it's all about loyalty. If you are disloyal, the Speaker of the House will stick you in that salmon fishing committee, if there were such a thing, to say, I'll teach you not to vote with me the next time. And so here, I keep stressing this over and over because students forget this. The majority party controls everything. So if a committee has 15 members, and they're always odd numbers, by the way, 8 of these will be in the majority party. And 7 will be in the minority. Now, this will switch if the majority party changes. Got it? And the chairman of the committee, who controls everything inside of the committee, comes out of the majority. See how important that majority is? I keep driving that home. So that's committees. That's the general idea behind committees. So let's look at the types of committees. There are the standing committees. And I want you to look at this word right down here. They're permanent. They have their own offices. The committee itself is like an entity. They have permanent staff members who work for the committee, regardless of who the members are on that committee. Okay? And these are the most common of the committees. And I'm going to tell you, 85% of the time, they're the most important committees. And these committees are based on specific subjects and topics. And I just gave you a couple here. Okay? That's the first type. Second type is called the conference committee. Now, the conference committee is very unique because according to the procedures of the Congress of the United States, a bill that is going to be sent to the president, look at this word right here. It has to be the exact same bill coming out of both the House and the Senate. And ladies and gentlemen, it is never the exact same bill because every person in that Congress has got an agenda. This should mean something to you by now. In other words, if you're from the House, you have single member districts that you have to work with. If you're from the Senate, you're serving at large where you have to be concerned about the entire state. And remember, they all want to get reelected. And so what happens is when a bill comes out of the House and or the Senate in two different forms, you have to have a conference committee. Its job is to create one bill, one. And then it is sent back to be voted on, up and down vote, before it can be sent to the president. And then the third type of committee are just temporary committees. They exist mostly to investigate. Right now, there's a committee happening while I'm recording this that has to do with what happened in Washington, D.C. last January. There's committees right now about COVID, about vaccines. There are committees everywhere. These are temporary. And that's all I want you to know about these right now. Now, when we talk about committees, I want to talk about 4 things that can happen in committee. Here's the very first thing I want you to remember as we go through this. Look at that sentence. Most bills never, ever, ever get out of committee. Don't you wish I could draw a straight line? They rarely get out of committee. Most bills die in committee. So let's look at the 4 things that can happen. Thing number 1 is the bill will pass as is, no changes. Rare, rare, rare. Everybody has something they want to be added to the bill. Ladies and gentlemen, what is really sad, for example, if there is an emergency bill for some area devastated by hurricanes, these people in Congress will argue against it until they get something for their state. It happens all the time. There was a ginormous hurricane years ago in New York. And they were trying to get money to the people that were really suffering. And one of the Texas senators said, no, I'm not voting for this. He was going to vote it down for some special thing that he wanted. Now turn around years later and there was a major hurricane here called Harvey. Well, guess what? He was begging for money for Houston, Dickinson, Fort Bend, and the guy from New York said, nope, I'm not voting for it. Tit for tat, baby. So that's why this rarely happens, not even in a national emergency. Number 2, bills can be killed. That means to be voted down. Well, that doesn't happen because if it's killed too early, it can be rewritten. And so they rarely are killed. Okay, so then what happens to them if they're rarely killed? Well, it's this crazy little term called pigeonhole. This little picture here, this comes from when there were old-fashioned antique desks, and they were called roll-top desks. And senators had these little cubby holes, they were called pigeonholes, where they would stick their papers and some of, whatever they needed. It was kind of like their own little non-digital file. So it's called pigeonhole because it's just big enough to hold a pigeon. So what pigeonhole means is this very simply, look at this right here, to hold a bill indefinitely, to not do anything, just let it lay there. And the chairman is the one who makes this decision. Now, if we were studying legislative procedure as a graduate class, we would find out that the chairman can be overruled, but it's very complicated. So for our purposes, I want you to understand that it's the chairman who will refuse. It goes, no, we're not going to do that today. We're not going to do that this month. If there's no action, there's no vote. So it's just going to die. It's going to die. It's going to sit there through session, and then the term's over. Remember, a term is 2 years. The great majority of bills die in a pigeonhole. They never even they never even become considered. That's what this means right here. Okay? Now, the is here in this process where members will make deals with one another. They have to make deals so that they can get votes, enough votes for their bill to pass. Now, this little strange terminology is called log rolling. You see, these two men don't want to go in the water here. See the water up here? And so they have to move their feet at the same time, or one of them is going to get soaking wet. So if they don't cooperate, this guy goes in the water. He's furious. He's cursing right there. He says, I'll never vote with you again. And this guy goes, oops, I messed up. So they're making deals. Remember, it's deal making because they want to get something for their state, for their district, so they can get reelected. Now, one of the things that happens in this amendment process is that it's a little something called pork barrel. Pork is a fatty meat. Very, delicious, but fatty. Lots of waste. And so what happens in this deal making is that items, things, budget money are added that are not vital. They're not important. They're only important to a certain district or a certain state. And it's with this log rolling that these deals will get made so that these members in these committees can go back home and say, look, I brought jobs. We got $1 million to have Cy-Fair College study the reason why in Richmond there are so many yellow lizards. Yellow lizards everywhere. And we gave $1 million to find out why. And that person can say, look, I'm going to have people looking for yellow lizards all over high schools in the Richmond area. And I brought research money. And by the way, we passed a law that says that anyone who captures a yellow lizard will get $5 extra. I know I'm being absurd. I'm trying to make a point, okay? The bottom line is it's often considered wasteful spending because somebody wants to look good. Vote for me. Look what I did. What's that word again? What is it, y'all? Oh, it's called incumbency. Got it? Okay, let's move on. Voted on. And I want you to look what I wrote here. Just because it gets out of committee does not mean it's easy. In the House, it is a very controlled process, and it is controlled by the Speaker of the House, who is a member of the majority. Are y'all getting sick of that, right? Me telling you that over and over. Well, the first thing the Speaker does, it's got to be placed on a calendar, and the House has tons of calendars. Well, y'all, it's like a schedule. And all I want you to know is that there are calendars, and bills are put on the calendar to decide when it will be brought up for vote. Well, guess who controls it? Hello? Hello, do you see that? And let's say it one more time. Say it with me. The Speaker is always from the majority. Now, the Speaker controls the Rules Committee. The Rules Committee is the one that sets up all the rules. How they set up when will we debate, how many days, and how many minutes can each person speak. They determine how long you can speak in the House. This committee is made up of members of both parties, but it's always controlled by let's say it one more time, the majority. When it comes to debate and voting in the House, you cannot let 438 blowhards who are trying to get reelected to speak unlimited minutes, or they would never, people would die. And so they decide in the House, how many minutes. Now, this right here, that's in all caps, I want you to write every word of that down. The Speaker of the House will never, ever, ever call for a vote unless he or she knows in advance what the decision will be. They're not going to be embarrassed. That's why they've got whips. That's why they've got majority leaders, minority leaders. They do not want to be, it is never spontaneous. Never. They do not want to look like they're ineffective as a leader. So let's head to the Senate right quick, because from how a bill becomes law, we're going to start all over when we go to the Senate. All over, like it never happened. Now, in the Senate, and please don't miss this on the vocabulary, the Senate majority leader controls the Senate. Do not confuse the majority leader of the House with the majority leader of the Senate. They're two separate people. And because of tradition, this person has become the most powerful person in the Senate. Not the vice president of the Senate, because not the president of the Senate, because that's the vice president of the United States. Not the president pro tem, because that guy or woman is an honorary position, usually to the person who's been there the longest. The majority leader in the Senate, look right here, has the same authority as the Speaker of the House. Now, when you answer this on the vocabulary, be sure you say this is not a person of the House. And they follow the same procedures. I didn't want to go through the whole thing again. So the committee actions are virtually the same. Pass it as is, rare. Kill it immediately, rare. Amend it all the time. Log rolling, all the time. Pork barrel, all the time. However, in the Senate, there is one major difference, and that is called the filibuster. This happens during floor debate. Now listen to me very carefully. Because the Senate only has 100 members, remember that? They do not have limits on how long they can speak. because it's just 100 people. But what can happen is that if the majority leader is not sure exactly how many votes he has, he can ask one of his majority senators to stall. And one of the ways they stall is through the filibuster, unlimited talking, no stopping. Now, it's to prevent voting on a bill. You want to prevent it, you got to slow it down. You see, the filibuster is when one senator gains the right to speak and will not sit down. Now, the longest filibuster in history was in the late 1940s when a senator from South Carolina named Strom Thurmond talked for over 24 hours to kill a civil rights bill. And there are rules attached to the filibuster. No sitting, no food, no assistance of any kind. They can talk about anything. Our illustrious senator from Texas, Ted Cruz, did a filibuster for 4 hours where he read Dr. Seuss to his children over FaceTime. It's a stalling tactic, okay? To slow things down to prevent something from happening. And then, as I mentioned before, if a bill comes out of the Senate and the House as a different bill, they have to go back, create this conference committee where they will create one bill. One. It's voted on just one time, no debate, it's voted on, and then it's sent to the president. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is a big overview of committees. And once again, loyalty, and then there's more loyalty. Thank you for listening.